Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
Good morning, all the lab listeners out there. I just want you to know those folks in Jackson know what they doing down in them parts. And I don't understand people like Charles and Wilton. They be hazing folks. There's no more hazing in these organizations. That's not allowed. That's not fair. Y'all bring folks down there at Jackson, Mississippi, and y'all sure know how to show people a good time.
Yes, sir.
Big brother Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm dealing with this post-hazing event as well, man. I'm telling you.
That voice says you are, sir.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, goodness gracious. Yes, Jackson. Jackson.
Yeah.
Charles, how you doing?
Doc, is definitely one of those days when you feel it out the hole. That's it's one of them days. When you try to. I'm sorry. When you feel it after informational session, but yeah, that was. It was absolute. It was absolute. Let me take my hat off to Jackson, Mississippi. The city showed this program tremendous love last night, and yeah, we're feeling the effects of it today. But I take my hat off to the city. I mean, SWAC Championship, post SWAC Championship was all that and more.
Absolutely.
Well, Wilson, let me bring you into the fold. How you doing? You look mighty professional.
I'm hanging in there. I won't say all the words that Charles just said. I think he explained it eloquently. So I'm gonna just keep it moving.
Smart move. I like that. You learn fast, young man. You learn fast. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I'm comfortable in the confines of my home. You know, new day in Aggieland happening right now. We in good shape right now. Can't complain one bit.
Yeah, congratulations. I like the fact that you all move fast, and 2 days later you move faster.
Mm-hmm. We ain't fishing over in Aggieland. You guys should know that by now.
Yeah, you got it done. So with that being said, what's the weather like up there? And we got to get our weather report. When we think we're bad, it's raining, it's a little cold. We know
the highs have been in the 30s all week with the wind chill in the 20s.
Yeah, bless your heart.
Oh, I have a coat. The coat fixes everything. I can put the coat on right now. I'll be warm with this t-shirt. It's not a problem. I got the right gear for it. Don't fret. I don't like the cold.
While we giving shout outs to Jackson, Mississippi, I also want to give shout outs to Jackson State. Congratulations to them to officially getting their Celebration Bowl ticket punched and doing it in fine fashion, coming from behind and tying it late in the half. We'll get a chance to go on that a little deeper. But then in the second half, boy, they pulled out a big old stick. Big stick. But let me also give a shout out to the SWAC. All those involved, commissioners on down, they did a marvelous job. The way they bring out the stage, I was looking on one side to turn back around, the stage was out. They had the fence up, putting everybody out. So look very top of the line there. Good job there. So shout out to everybody involved with this SWAC. Shout out to Celebration Bowl, John Grant, in terms of his invitation. In terms of, what did this see? I got my official Celebration Bowl 24 shirt on, so I'm ready. It's time to get ready. We'll have a game on Saturday. We'll be in. Some folks will be in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
This I-20 gonna be nice.
I-20 will be nice.
I know you're giving shout outs, but there's two groups I want to give a shout out to. First of all, as usual, I leave around the third quarter to go get a feel for the fans. You talking about some of the best fans in HBCU.
Yeah.
The fans and alumni. The call and response between the band and the fans, just to sit in the crowd, they know every call. It's almost like they practiced it. But just to be in that environment.
he said they like the yell call at Texas A&M, and they don't even practice.
Texas A&M
they don't even practice
call.
like that and get it done.
All of a sudden, everybody pom-poms in unison. But, I mean, tremendous fan base. And then that's one of the best back and forth between bands.
Oh, my God.
You can hear it on the TV screen, too, my man.
Oh, nice.
Oh, my God.
They were having that. They were going at it on that screen.
I've seen a lot of fifth quarter battles, but, man, I could not leave. I was standing next to Charles. I was like, we were supposed to go to the press conference. And I'm like, man, I can't leave this.
And
we got caught, Mike. We got
caught up. I said, don't worry, the door shut. I got you on this.
That fifth quarter was like unbelievable. Like when those bands like horns, the boom and the juke, it's unreal. And last night again, another classic epic fifth quarter. So, and like Mike said, like we almost forgot we had to go to the press conference because the way they were just going at each other. I mean, that was bandsmanship at its finest. I mean, that was beautiful to watch.
Dave, you're welcome to come back. I know y'all still doing your thing. You got a couple more years for y'all to even think about it.
I got man of the year. That's all I got. I got man of the year. Got the battle of the bands. I might take the trip to LA next year. We're gonna see.
Yeah, I guess y'all do got the battle of the bands. It's true. We
show up when we're invited. When we invited, we show up. That's how we roll with the Blue and Gold Marketing Machine. When we invited, we show up.
I'm not mad. There's some folks over there in SWAC territory in Jackson between Southern and Jackson State have a little something different to say about it, but I'm gonna leave that alone as we get in here. I don't want to.
Oh, I've already gotten the tweets, sir. I've already gotten the tweets.
Stay away.
I already see joint events happening in Atlanta. I'm trying my best to stay away.
Well, I shouted out. Let me shout out Dr. Charles McCullough. Got a chance to see him continue to do his thing. Everything's in an upward trajectory. With that being said, let's get into the Division II side of things. We did have a HBCU playing in the regional finals, essentially the quarterfinals, and it didn't go quite as planned. Virginia Panthers, they lost to Valdosta State Blazers 49-14. Pretty tough there. So they fall to 10-4. Overall 6-1. Great season. But the question will be interesting on Tuesday. I talked about this last week. Do you just look at the fact that Virginia Union went another round, or do you look at the breakdown between what Virginia Union and Miles Golden Bears, Panthers and the Golden Bears, what did they do in terms of Valdosta State? What were the scores differential? So I'm interested to see what the voters do. And you're right, Dave. I see where you leaning. I think a lot more going to lean like that. But, you got to put it on the table. I'm fascinated to see what that looks like. Will Virginia Union be able to hold on? Remember, they flipped everything last week once they won and they took over. So it'll be fascinating to see if they can hang on there. So let me go around, get everybody's general thoughts on Virginia Union, the successful season they had, and then it came to a halt against Valdosta State Blazers. Coach Jermaine Jackson, we talk about him, HBCU. He's making a major statement. But you talking about adding to a resume if anybody is looking at him, and I'm going to put that right there. He certainly is making them have something additional to look at. With that being said, Mike, what are your thoughts in terms of Virginia Union, the loss to Valdosta State, 49-14 yesterday?
Yeah, it was a tough one. I mean, you look. You hate to say it, but it the only time it was really competitive was in the first quarter. I think it was 7-0, and then in the second quarter, Valdosta State rolled off 3 straight touchdowns, and I think Virginia Union was able to muster, one touchdown in the second quarter. But I mean, you look at the tail of the tape, that was a decisive win, 49-14. You look at the point differential between, 49-14 and what was it, 33 to 17 or something like that. I think it's hard to ignore it. I think you consider both and look at the entirety of their season, but I think it's hard to ignore their performance against a common foe. And how they performed. If you really want to evaluate it realistically, I think you can't. I just feel you can't ignore that. So I'm going to lean toward, yes, you consider the fact that they went further, but you also have to consider their performance against the common foe and how they fared against that. I think if you look at the board and Division I, I think that they would also look at that as well. That's one of the factors. From what I understand, that they look at how they did against common opponents. So why would this be any different?
Good points. Good points. I'm gonna go to you, Charles, and get your thoughts on that. I'm gonna give you a little more cheat code to think about. Virginia Union did beat Wingate, who won their conference.
That's
with that being said, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the score of the game was lopsided, and that was surprising. I think that was the most yards Virginia Union's defense had given up all season. But you do start kind of taking a look at the common opponents when you start talking about that battle for number one. But I think the big takeaway from it yesterday, I just kind of thought about the capstone of Jada Byers and what he was able to do at Virginia Union during his time there. Even yesterday, eclipsing the 2,000-yard mark. So tremendous career, and he's definitely not only worthy of the Harlan Hill Trophy, but he's a gentleman who should get a good hard look on the next level. He is a tremendous running back. Enjoyed covering him during his time there at Virginia Union.
So let me go to you, Wilton. In terms of this, as AD, and I was going to bring this up, so I'm glad he did. The Panthers actually scored more points than Miles. While they might have gave up more, they did score more points.
Yeah.
Wilton, where are you on this thought?
When I saw that, I was actually a little shocked because I probably would have gave the offensive edge to Miles versus Virginia Union. But I think more so than anything, it just kind of shows to the point that the season that Virginia Union had and the job that Parker did to, put this team together and to see what they got. Like, I'll be the first person to say, when we were talking about on the show, where do we think that Virginia Union and or Miles could get after the first round? And to see Virginia Union go as far as they did, I think you have to really consider how special this team was, number one. Number two, how special Jada Byers was. But I think they just ran into a Valdosta State team that was just like super loaded. Obviously, it was Sammy Edwards with their running back Alfonso Franklin, with one of their running backs in Alfonso Franklin, and they just kind of hurt themselves. But I think that this is a team that Dr. Parker is building that's going to be back, and I think you have to put them in the continuity with the fact that this is, obviously one of the better teams in D2, and they're going to be there for a while, and they're likely going to make some other noise next year.
So you're not one of those believers out there that Coach Parker, Dr. Parker, is exiting stage left?
Not yet. Not yet.
I don't think he's leaving.
Yeah, not yet.
I had to ask.
No. Great, good. That's a good thought. I don't think he's leaving yet.
All right. Let me go to you, Dave. What are your thoughts in terms of this thought process, Miles, Virginia Union? I think you kind of gave us a cheat code with your look that you provided everybody, and I even brought it up.
I think for me, I understand the common opponent aspect, but it's about what you've done in the playoffs, and they made it to the regional final in their particular region. I mean, that stands for something. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do. It doesn't happen as often as you think for HBCUs to do that. So I think that alone puts them there. I understand common opponents, but sometimes it's about where you're at. And I know they played the same team, but there's a reason why Valdosta State is doing this doing this to everybody. They are just good. And the fact that Virginia Union leaned on Jada Byers much made it easier for Valdosta State because now you're one-dimensional in essence. So shout out to Virginia Union. I think they should be the top team in Division II HBCU. I don't think it should be a debate really, but And considering the CIAA has been so much stronger this season as well, when you take everything into account.
Yep.
I like you added that piece because that was going to be one of my final thoughts. Is not only did they go and beat Wingate, obviously they got the second round win over Lenore Ryan, and the CIAA all year showed that they were much tougher than the SIC.
And they did it both on the road, and they did it both on the road. Like they had to go on the road for both games to get to the
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Another good point. With that being said, last thing before we take our first break, we'll come back on the other side. We'll talk about the SWAC Championship game, kind of put that to bed. We'll do that in the next segment, and then we will push forward and give you our rankings. Not a lot of change there, so I'm going to push it out. But it's official now. We got the matchup we want. But before we do that, Jada Byers, Harlan Hill, what do you think is his chance? I think he made some great statements kind of closing things out. Charles? Where do you stand?
Absolutely. I would definitely deserving of that award. Like you said, a running back who eclipses 2,000 yards in a season, that speaks volumes. So I think definitely he should win that Harlan Hill award.
I'm going to go with you, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, not only this year, you look at last year. I mean, he has been the prominent focal point of that offense for 2 years. And he's done it, I think it was David who said, in a stronger conference. I think by far he should be the standout winner for the Harlan Hill Award, and maybe a couple of others. But I just hated that, it ended the way it is, but such is life and vision and FCS football, and that's the way it ended. But such a tremendous value. I think his performance, not only this year, but last year, justifies him winning that award.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. Wilton?
Definitely think he should get it. I mean, I'm under the mindset of this, especially with the way that we look at running backs in football now, whether it's collegiate level, what we're seeing on the collegiate level, and then just the level of play we see in running backs on the next level in the NFL. Like, this guy's spectacular. Anytime you can have a running back that gets over 1,000 yards, let alone 2,000 yards, is enough within itself. So I definitely think he's worthy of that award.
Dave?
Yeah, I think he should get it. I mean, I know it's going to be tough. Even against Valdosta State, he averaged 5 yards a carry. I mean, that's a phenomenal team. So I think to do something like that, between that and everything he's done all year, and his entire career at Virginia Union, I think it should be a no-brainer, but we know how the voters do sometimes.
Yep.
You're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
One of the interesting things that we have to get better in terms of HBCUs, at least from the SIDs, that's why I'm excited about AD and what he is likely to bring to the table with Morehouse, and what he also will share, I'm pretty sure, with his colleagues. One of the things I understand, we see this at the FCS, where I'm a voter on some of these polls around here. The SIDs will send out information on their players to other SIDs and ask them to consider, not tell them what to vote, but ask them to consider. So you also got to make sure that you're doing your spot to informing folks that may not be as informed as they should be. Also, last thing, promise to take this first break. I want to give a shout out to AD, Drew, and Brian and AD as they do the sports wrap. You know that AD was on assignment while we were in Jackson. He was down there in Valdosta, and he covered that game. So he has the entire press conference from the Virginia Union Panthers, and you'll be able to see that tonight on Sports Wrap. So make sure you turn in and get some of those comments from the coaches and key players as they make history this year for Virginia Union and HBCUs alike. With that, we'll take our first break, come back on the other side. Time to get into the SWAC Championship game. I had some folks questioning and whether they're a little nervous at that time. Most folks are like, no. When they came to us, we told them no. We told them that's what it was going to happen in the first half. I'm not sure I knew what it was going to look like in the second half, but it's a whole different thing. With that, we'll see you on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
HBCU football fans, this year's Cricket Celebration Bowl has a new date. A champion will rise at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 14th as the MEAC and SWAC champions meet once again. Join us in Atlanta for championship football, interactive fan experiences, and iconic marching bands. It's an HBCU family reunion that you don't want to miss. See who will be crowned the next HBCU national champion. For event and ticket information, visit the Celebration Bowl.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Bar Cave. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour app. And enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends, honoring talents such as Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and Luther Vandross. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets.
ESPN Events Band of the Year, a title reserved for the absolute best in the world of HBCU marching bands. A season-long competition that culminates in Atlanta on Friday, December 13th. Drum majors, percussion, drill, auxiliaries, musicality. All aspects will be adjudicated by expert judges in the world of college bands. 4 bands will qualify for the big stage, where national champions will be crowned. Follow us on social media for ranking updates throughout the season. And join us at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 13th. For event and ticket information, visit band.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, Wilton Jackson II, Dave Rhodes, and we are giving you your morning Sports Lab show. With that being said, let's get into this matchup. You know, unless you were hibernating sleep HBCU fans, you understand that the SWAC Championship Game was yesterday, hosted by Jackson State University and Memorial Stadium in Jackson, Mississippi. They were playing one of the big arch rivals, if you would, against Southern Jaguars, and they've had their way with Southern of late. I know they kind of flipped that coin. A lot of folks early when we started covering this, Southern just seemed to be a way to get it done against Jackson. Well, that hasn't been the same as of late. With that being said, the score was 41-13. Halftime, you had a 10-10 game. And actually, going into the half, it looked like Southern was going to take a 10-3 lead. And you got a big play by Jackson State as Jacoby Morgan actually threw a first down, but he got hurt on the play. You knew it was something because he stayed down a little bit, and you were like, this doesn't look good. So everybody, question marks, I'm sure, went in everybody's mind, whether they're watching, they're live, media, and you just kind of got a quiet pause. And Zay came in there, Zay McDonald comes in there, and he takes off, gets a big run. Like, okay, settle down. Then he gets a couple of more big plays, and then a really big one that set up a touchdown that ties the game 10-10. You could see everybody. One side, you could see the energy just kind of come out. The other one's energy rose in terms of how the stadium was playing out. So it's fascinating from that perspective. And then the second half, Jackson State really just took control of the ball. They were able to run and get it done, ultimately putting up 200 yards in total offense. In rushing, 275 to be exact on 50 attempts, putting up 385 total yards, 313 for Southern. They also had 133 yards rushing. Kudos to Dillon and Mulligan in terms of what they were able to get done on the ground as well. A very solid game from that perspective. That's kind of my overall framework. Obviously, we talked about all the things around the game, from the city to the stadium to the bands. Now let's get into the numbers and get your thoughts in terms of what took place in the matchup. I'm going to go with you, Wilton. Give me your thoughts in terms of your thoughts overall on this game.
So watching that first half, you knew that this game would be different. Both coaches had already alluded to that. I'll be the first person to say I didn't necessarily think it was going to be exactly like the way it went in the first half. You kind of alluded to it, Dr. Cavil. When Southern went up 10-3, the stadium was very quiet in a way. on Jackson State's side. I mean, it was somewhat in a position that they had never truly like been in for a while. And so, you see Morgan go down. Usually when you see him go down, he'll typically, Charles, you know this too. He'll typically pop back up. But when he stayed down for a while, it was like, okay, this might be something serious. So he gets up. And most of us in the press box where I was were thinking, okay, Cameron McCoy. And so when Cameron McCoy didn't come in and we saw Zai McDonald, this was a little shock. We were like, okay, well, TC elects to go with, Zai McDonald. Let's see what he does. And then to your point, he comes in, he has that big running play to set up, obviously, that touchdown before halftime. You guys know, all of us that watched the game, that touchdown was probably the biggest touchdown of the game because it gave Jackson State momentum that they needed before halftime to get the ball back after halftime and really start setting the tone of they felt as though they were the better team in this game. So I think that more so that final touchdown in the first half set up the rest of the game. And of course, I asked TC yesterday in the press conference what he said. I can only imagine what he said at halftime. But whatever it was,
cleaned it up.
Yeah. He did.
Cleaned it up.
Whatever he said, it worked. I mean, you're talking about a renewed energy coming out after halftime. Zai McDonald leading the offense. Defense was super charged up. It just wasn't the same Southern team that we saw in the first half. They weren't able to run the ball as much as they wanted to. And then, of course, later on, you would get a quarterback change. They were also getting pressure on T-set. So I think that you just really saw the Jackson State team that most of us expected to see coming into that second half. We saw it fully throughout the second half, and they were able to get the win.
Charles, I'm good to you. Get your thoughts as we kind of talked about it back and forth. Love analyzing different things behind the game. What do you see? Seeing plays, missed blocks, great blocks, holding calls before you see the flag, and then you see it coming out. It's amazing when you put all that together. But beyond that, what were your thoughts of the game itself as well?
Well, and I think Wilton touched on it. That drive before halftime was such a game changer because when, like you said, it re-energized the fan base. They got that 12th man back into the game. I turned to you, Doc, during the course of the game, and I said in that first half, it almost was the exact same scenario where you had this pall, this tension on the Jackson State fan base side. I remember that back when they played FAMU earlier this season. It was the same sort of energy as though they were waiting on some big play to happen. And, Jacoby Morgan goes down and I was like, wow, that's huge in terms of where this thing can go. And, you take your hat off to TC Taylor because I like you mentioned, I thought he was going with Cam McCoy. And I literally thought Zai was coming in for a package of some sort. Yeah. And the fact that he was able to not only get that team downfield as fast as he did, but to actually punch it in before halftime, I thought that was such a game change. And I've marveled all season at how this coaching staff has made adjustments going in the second half. And we talked about, Jackson State's defense only surrendering, I believe, going into this game, 10 points over the last 5 games, if I'm not mistaken, in the second half of games. And, you if you're a Jackson State fan, you sort of felt good just getting back to level set 10-10 after halftime because you kind of figured with the energy of the crowd that this coaching staff was going to make the necessary adjustments. So hats off in that regards. Hats off to Zai because I have not seen him look as polished as he did yesterday. I think going into that game, I think he'd only completed 1 pass on the season. So for him to actually, not only use his legs, but to pass the ball around a little bit, it opened things up because Southern was doing a tremendous job getting to Jacoby Morgan yesterday. You take your hat off to that defensive line. Irv Mulligan was able to get off, but anytime Jackson State passed, Kelby Gibbons was coming off that edge and was providing issues for Jackson State's offensive line. But, they made the necessary adjustments, made big plays, and then the momentum took over in the second half.
Let me just give you a shout out. I see you now making sure that your champions just happened to find their shirt, didn't you?
There you go. Yeah. Shout out to Thaddeus Reed. Appreciate He had the championship tees ready to go yesterday. 1,400.
Nice. With that, Dave, let me go to you. One thing that Wilton said that was fascinating to me is also people focus on that touchdown before the half, but coming out of the halftime, as he alluded to, not only got the momentum, but they got a score on that drive as well. And so you really saw the motion start and the confidence start to change in that matchup. What are your thoughts in terms of the game?
So while I was watching the game, I was very impressed by Southern's defense and the way he was way they were holding Morgan down. But then when Morgan got hurt and Za walked in there and turned it into a touchdown to close the half, the first thing I thought was, if they score in this drive when they get the ball back, this game's over. Like this game's done. And then they score first drive back. Southern has a turnover, and then it spiraled after at that point. So I'm more fascinated about what's going to happen next week, in regards to who's going to be the quarterback, who's going to be available, because we always have the discussions about rust, blah, blah, going into this game. And we had some major injuries in this game, but so did South Carolina State before then. But we'll see. But it was pretty much Jackson State's game in the second half. I mean, it was 31-3 in the second half. So once the momentum started going, it was pretty much a done deal at that point. Southern had a valiant effort, but Jackson State pulled it out, and shout out to them for a phenomenal season. And we'll see what happens next week.
Yeah, perfect way to give that plug. We will talk about the Celebration Bowl in the last segment. Before we do that, Mike, give me your thoughts, and then we'll take our second break and move into the poll ranking.
Yeah, a couple of data points. I always kind of look. You look at first down, first half. I think Southern University had an advantage, believe it or not, in third down conversion. Jackson State didn't convert a third down until the third quarter.
Yep.
But they started that. There were two different reasons behind that. In the first half, it was more so that aggressive SU defense. In the second half, they finished the game with only 2 third down conversions. But in the second half, it was that run game. They were gashing 7-8 yards off the pop on first down. They didn't need to convert a third down because they were converting them at second down. So I thought that data point was interesting. The other point is, at 5 minutes to go in the first half, I think I shared this with you, Doc, and with UCB. 5 minutes to go. Okay. You look at the stats. 60 yards rushing total for Jackson State. They finished the game 275. I think ESPN had them at 250, 260. But nevertheless, they got, I don't know what was said at that halftime, or I don't know, the Zy Montgomery coming in and that was a game changer. Their yards per attempt went up almost exponentially. So another data point that lets you know how this game went. And then we can't forget the 4 turnovers caused by the Jackson State defense. That defense woke up. I don't know what happened again, what he said. Well, we know what he said because we know what he opened the can of whatever. Whatever it is, he needs to take that to Atlanta next week. But those are the data points. And I think we talk about, Zion, we can't. Irv Mulligan had some hardcore yards.
Man,
I think he was at about 5 yards per carry, but you look at, he had some crucial carries as well. I think we can't overlook his contribution to the game. You could even go back and forth between Irv and Zion McDonald. But I think that's another data point. And I think that their ability to run is kind of their mainstay. So they'll have to take that to Atlanta. So I know we'll talk about that in the next segment, but that'll be interesting. That's the question that popped in my head besides the quarterback question.
Good stuff, Mike. And you're right. When you look at the first half, Irv Mulligan had averaged 6.3, but Kobe Dillon was right there with him. He had 6 yards a carry. In terms of the second half, Irv took down a little bit, but he still was getting it done. He went down from 6.3 to 5 yards a carry for the total game. But Dylan moved from 6 yards to 4.6. Talking about that defensive being able to make some stops. Latter part of the game, obviously, had to start throwing a little bit there, so that was a difference as well. But great data points that you talk about in the matchup. It was fascinating, particularly for that first half and essentially third quarter. Great game in terms of that. It's interesting as we're in the chats. We're watching the game. You have chats, people watching on TV, so you see different things. And people are talking about, yeah, it's over after this play. And I thought it was a great coaching decision when you got down there. You're down 17. Don't feel like you got to get the touchdown at this point. Go ahead and kick the field goal. Yeah. You got a 2-score game. Can you get the stop on the drive to see if you can get yourself back in the momentum? And so it went back and forth. And people saying it was already over. And we was like, no, not yet. Then when they got that stop after the 14, then they went back up and pushed it to 21. He's like, yeah, ball game pretty much here with that interception that kind of took a lot of momentum before they did it. Even though it went back and forth, Jackson State, Zai did come right back and throw an interception, but you could see it was almost like a punt deep in their territory with time running out. It got very difficult. Well, with that, we'll take our second break. We'll come back. We'll talk about the poll rankings. In the last segment, we will talk about the Celebration Bowl as we will see how the teams rank. Pretty much everybody knows what that looks like, but we'll get the official rankings in week number 15 after this break. Well, let's see if we can get in there. Let's do this as we're moving along a little bit. Let's push forward instead of the poll rankings. We'll hold them off as a little more tease, and let's keep rolling. We're going to get into this Celebration Bowl. You have, in terms of the FCS, AFCA coaches poll, you got a top 20 matchup. You got 18 with South Carolina State coming in at 18. And you have Jackson State at 20. You have another in terms of AFCA. They have Jackson at 15, and you have South Carolina State at 18. So a top 20 matchup. I really like what that looks like. Let's get into it a little bit from South Carolina State. Winners of the MEAC, had a great season. First-year head coach Chennisberry, very familiar with him in terms of what he did at Benedict. His name's been out there, but he's been able to bring that championship waves over to South Carolina State as they get it done. And then you have Jackson State coming in here, getting into it with that. We're going to tease that out a little more because we got Jackson State on the other side with T.C. Taylor. And you essentially got a rematch. But as I said, we'll tease it up a little bit. Let's take this next break and come back on the other side. I think we will give you the poll rankings and make you wait as a tease a little more on the Celebration Bowl.
At AutoMasters LLC, our mission is to serve our community by providing quality automobiles at affordable prices. All of our vehicles are inspected and certified to offer you the confidence in knowing you have a quality vehicle. Our goal is to provide you with a seamless process and positive experience for your automobile purchase. Financing recommendations and specific vehicle inquiries are available at your request. You can find us at www.automasters06.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Also, please feel free to contact Terrence Miles at 601-927-7794. And oh yeah, tell him Sonia sent you.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Bar Cave. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour app. And enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends, honoring talents such as Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and Luther Vandross. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets.
HBCU football fans, this year's Cricket Celebration Bowl has a new date. A champion will rise at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 14th as the MEAC and SWAC champions meet once again. Join us in Atlanta for championship football, interactive fan experiences, and iconic marching bands. It's an HBCU family reunion that you don't want to miss. See who will be crowned the next HBCU national champion. For event and ticket information, visit thecelebrationbowl.com.
When it comes to professional learning, teachers deserve better. From the leader in online learning, Stride brings you the Stride Professional Development Center, an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that gives teachers choice and flexibility, allowing them to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. It's time you take charge of your learning. Visit us today to get started.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We're here with the professors as we get into it. Let's get into the poll rankings. As I said, no changes throughout the poll, but we'll see what it looks like at the top. Does Jackson State, after a big victory in the championship game, stay at the top? Are there any changes? People have voted back and forth with South Carolina State, the Bulldogs, Jackson State Tigers. It's been close. We'll see if that stays the same. With that being said, outside of the poll, as things have cleared up, nobody dropped out of the poll. Receiving votes: Morgan State Bears 6-6, 3-2. Alcorn State Braves 6-6, 5-3 in the conference race, and Alabama A&M Bulldogs, who made a coaching change, they finished the season at 6-6, 3-5. With that being said, let's get into the top 7. We do got a change here. Southern falls from the 5 spot 2 spots. Southern Jaguars 8-5, 7-1, 170 points, and they fall from the 5 spot. At number 6, you have Alabama State Hornets. They move up 1 spot. They had finished the season at 7-5 and 5-3 in the conference race, 172 points. Bringing us to number 5. At number 5, you have the Florida A&M Rattlers. They finished the season at 7-5, 5-3 in the conference race as well, like Alabama State Hornets. They have 174 points, and they do move up a spot, previously at number 6 in week 14. At number 4, Tennessee State Tigers, 9-4, 6-2, 182 points. They are at number 4. At number 3, North Carolina Central Eagles, 8-3, 4-1, 185 points. They are in 3 spot. At number 2, South Carolina State, the Bulldogs remain at number 2, 9-2, 5-0, 5 first place votes. They are staying right there at 224 points. And at number 1, Jackson State Tigers improved to 11 wins on the season after winning the SWAC Championship Game. So they're at 11-2 overall, 8-0 in the conference race. Impressive, just like the South Carolina State Bulldogs. They received 6 first-place votes, 225 points. So the Celebration Bowl will feature the 1 and 2 in Dr. Cavill's matchup. Both teams undefeated in conference play. It should be interesting. But before we get to that, I need to know your thoughts, guys, on the top 7 in the poll rankings in week number 15. Charles, tell me what your thoughts are.
I'm still fighting through North Carolina Central and Tennessee State 3 and 4.
We all are. We all are, Charles. We all are.
Who from North Carolina Central do you have voting on this thing?
Yes.
I'm gonna start voting next year. We gotta fix this. This is insanity.
Yeah.
We gotta fix this.
Carolina Central Eagle,
We gotta fix this.
Does their vote be magnified? Is it a weighted average or what?
I mean, and it's funny because I think you can make that argument for North Carolina Central at number 3 because, I mean, are we giving out, brownie points for a playoff loss? So, I think you sort of have to weigh that, but that's my sticker right there. And then I think 1 and 2 is right. I think slice it up however you want to slice it up. Whether you put Jackson State at number 2 or South Carolina State at number 2, I think the 2 best teams in HBCU football will meet each other next week in the Celebration Bowl.
Let me go with you, Wilton. Where are you as these guys throw a hissy fit? In the poll ranking? Are you part of that fit?
No, I'm not gonna lie to you, Dr. Cavil. 1 and 2, I'm good with. Even last week when I saw this poll, when I saw Central over Tennessee,
I'd be mad if you wasn't good at 1 and 2 now.
Yeah, no, for sure. 3 and 4, I'm flipping Tennessee State over North Carolina Central. That's just where I'm at with that. And it's no, disrespect to Trey Oliver and what he's done with North Carolina Central and those Eagles, but I definitely would give that edge to Tennessee State over Central. Everything else I'm pretty much good with at 5, 6, and 7.
Good stuff. Dave?
I'm glad other people agree with me so they don't think that I'm biased. Okay, so
even though you are biased, but it's still.
I mean, everybody has a bias, and there's nothing wrong with a bias. Let me be clear.
Right.
But there's no way Tennessee State shouldn't be ahead of the school down the road. There's no way. Like they should at least be number 3. And I've always felt like South Carolina State's the best team, but we're gonna find out on Saturday. So I would have flipped those 2 as well. I don't think I would have moved Southern all the way down to 7. I probably would have put Southern up ahead of Alabama State, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Even though the East was a much tougher division than what Southern had to do in the West.
Yeah, only because they didn't make it to the SWAC Championship. I mean, that does stand for something.
Yep.
Like I could convince myself to move them all the way up to 5, but I'm not going to do that. But I could have been fine with them staying with at 5th where they were last week.
You wouldn't be alone in that boat either. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't have an issue with them staying at 5. I mean, I know they lost to Jackson this weekend, yesterday, and I get it, but they got there, and I think that stands for something.
Common sense.
AG is going all. But Mike, go ahead and give you those, and I'll give you AD's thoughts.
I don't care what AD. I don't care.
Listen. Hey, look. Now, here's my bicycle. In one more thing. If you move them all the way, if you move number 3 all the way down to 7, you wouldn't have no qualms about me. But based on what we got going on here, I mean, you got to put them ahead of Tennessee State.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. Tennessee State. They have a share of the championship of the OVC, right?
They do.
They do. Does North Carolina Central have a share of the championship in the MEAC? No. So that rule alone, tougher division. I don't think they played how many Division II schools did they play? None?
0.
All right. So
they played Valley.
I think we put that one to bed. Then
they played Joe Valley.
I mean, but they didn't play any. And we know the school down the road played. I think at least 1, maybe 2. I don't remember how many they played. They played one that wasn't even Division II.
You know what, Dave?
Division Z.
Dave, I love how you and Josh, y'all never refer to each other's schools. Man, I'm gonna start doing that with Southern.
School down there,
that place in Baton Rouge or something. You'll figure one out.
Mike, you got any final thoughts?
Yes, I'm not through. Johnny Thornton, who just said the Eagles are better than Tennessee State. No, Johnny, no. Step away from the table. Put the sippy cup down.
I don't know if they can fight with Montana, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if they can fight with Montana. I don't know if they can fight with Montana.
I agree. I think Southern should move up. You can say they played in the West. I agree with Dave. They're Western Conference champs. They made it to the championship. FAMU's at home. Alabama State's at home. Sorry, that should say for something. So I think they should move up. You win the championship, you're in the championship. That should say something in the poll or carry weight in the poll. So I think Southern should move up. Hell, I would think they should move up to 5, personally.
Now, unless you guys decide to just put the top.
You got to take him take in consideration that FAMU did beat Southern. The reason that Alabama State and FAMU are at home is because they play in the East.
Well, you know what you could do to fix that problem, right, Dr. Cavil? Y'all just change the SWAC standards to make it the top 2 teams play in the championship. We won't be having this problem anymore.
That's correct, but I didn't know I was the one that was allowed to make the rules. I have made.
I know.
What are we making the rules as we go?
I think so. But since you
that's what we always do.
I want to bring this up. We're going to look at the schedules for North Carolina Central and Tennessee State. I just want to get those out of the way. North Carolina Central open up Alabama State, Denny's Orange Bowl Blossom Classic. I know y'all forgot about that. Great game. Alabama State quarterbacks got hurt, or maybe in a different season in some ways in terms of Alabama State being a little more competitive, obviously. They win 31-24. They lose to Elon at home, 41-19. They lose to North Carolina, 45-10. They beat up on A&T, 66-24. Beat up on Norfolk, 37-10. Beat up on Campbell, 45-14. They play Lynchburg, beat them like you should, 68-0.
That's
that Lynchburg out.
Morgan State, defensive slugfest, 16-7. They lose to South Carolina State on the road, 24-21 after being down early in that matchup. They fight their way back. And then they pound Howard 26-3. Now, let's look at Tennessee State, OVC, just for a discussion sake. Tennessee State schedule. They beat Valley at home, 41-21. They go to North Dakota State, lose 52-3. In the Southern Heritage Classic, they beat up on Pine Bluff, 41-28. They lose on the road to Tennessee Tech, 24-14. Tennessee State beats Charleston Southern, 13-9. They beat Lindenwood Transition Program, 24-20. Eastern Illinois, 41-17. They go on the road for homecoming to beat Howard, 27-14. Same opponent there. You saw what Central did to Howard latter part of the season as well. They lose to UT Martin, 28-21. They beat Western Illinois, 45-20. Tennessee State, Gardner-Webb, they went 23-20. And at home, they beat Southeast Missouri, 28-21, which gives them a share of the championship. They go to the playoffs in Montana. First round, lose 41-27. So I just wanted to put that out there, get a little thoughts for everybody else as we had the discussion. But we're going to take our last break. We'll come back on the other side and we'll talk a little bit about the Celebration Bowl.
Doc, I know you want to end, but one thing you got to preface with that Tennessee State. 3 of their opponents, the previous champions for the OVC. Again, markedly a tougher league or tougher conference than the MEAC. I just want to.
I'm not.
Well, no. It gets better. It gets better. They sent 3 playoff teams there, and Tennessee State beat a top 15 SEMO squad.
Exactly, SEMO.
They beat a top 15.
I think that just worked out with the tie breaks. But y'all not finna get me all this talking about OVC in the Big South. Is that better if they are better than the MEAC? They're not much there. This is a one big league. They had 1 year where things worked out with other teams were not in a position to get more playoff bids in terms of the record. So they were in a perfect sliding spot. Miss me with that one. Not really. I'm not that impressed with the Tennessee State schedule. Tick attack one way or the other. If you hold me down, I can see you giving it Tennessee State in terms of a little tougher schedule, but it's not overwhelmingly tougher than North Carolina. No, sir. With that being said, we're going to take our last break and come back on the other side with permission of Big Brother Mike. And we'll talk about the
Yeah, go ahead.
HBCU football fans, a champion will rise at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 14th. MEAC champions, SWAC champions, the Cricket Celebration Bowl, crowning an HBCU national champion. For event and ticket information, visit thecelebrationbowl.com.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Bar Cave. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour app. And enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends, honoring talents such as Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and Luther Vandross. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets.
ESPN Band of the Year returns to Atlanta on December 13th. 4 marching bands will qualify for the big stage, where 2 national champions will be crowned. Follow us on social media for rankings updates throughout the season. And join us at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 13th. For event and ticket information, visit...
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a law, and who the ball, So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Well, Mike is going to have to move around as he gets prepared to catch a flight. So if he has to dip, we certainly understand. So I'm going to actually start with him so he can do that and move around. Let's jump right into it. Celebration Bowl. We have Jackson State representing the SWAC coming in at 11-2, 8-0 in conference, as we said earlier, facing South Carolina State. That's overall 9-2, 5-0, 1 versus 2 in terms of the poll rankings. Mike's, what are your initial thoughts of this matchup?
So the first question that we've always asked when the SWAC is going against the MEAC, especially the last 5 or 6 years, is can this team match the physicality of the MEAC team? And a couple of years I've said, well, I don't know. This Jackson State team, I think the answer is yes. Will they bring it with them and will it start, quarter 1? Yes, I think they could match physicality on both sides. You're looking at the top defensive teams on both leagues. I think South Carolina State's allowing maybe 115 yards. I think at least rushing. I think Jackson State is stopping the rush to 116. I say rush because I think the other data point is which team can run the ball. We saw what Jackson State did. We know South Carolina State has a balance, but they have a strong running game. I think the determinant is which team can enforce their running offense more effectively, and that's going to start at the line. So I think those 2 data points, really, I think Jackson State, to be honest, has the edge in scoring. I think they're at like 37 points per game. And if you look at our brethren on the MEAC, you look at scoring, I think South Carolina State is right at 35. Scoring, but I kind of give the edge to Jackson State, but it's defense and who can enforce their running approach more effectively and who can match physicality. Those 3 factors to me will determine the winner of this game. To me, it's that simple. So
I like that in a lot of ways. I think this is, you hear it all the time about the line play, but this is one of the games I really think will focus on who is able to control the line of scrimmage, obviously on both sides of the ball. With that being said, Mike, I know you got to make moves, so we'll let you do that. But let me go to Dave and get his thoughts on this matchup. All right. Safe travels.
So for me, I think it's been very quiet in Orangeburg since they haven't had to play any more games. So the big thing I'm curious about is whether or not Eric Phoenix is going to be ready for this game. I'm not sure. That's going to be a big game changer from that standpoint. But they got a pretty good backup in Ryan Stubblefield. But it's one thing to show out against Morgan and the Beholders, as I know, is Norfolk State, and it's another thing to show up against Jackson State. So I think that's going to be a big factor when you take into that. I do agree with Mike with regards to trench play. I think trench play is going to be a huge factor in this game, and I do agree with him that Jackson State has the trench play, unlike what has been historically something that the SWAC would be the big telltale when they had these matchups in the Celebration Bowl. But I don't think we're going to have that problem. But it's going to be fascinating to see how Chennis Berry, as a first-year head coach in the MEAC, walks into this game and see if he can execute and finish the job. Something that I know the Bulldogs has been begging for. I got South Carolina State winning this game, but I think it's going to be close. And I got to be careful because I'm going to be sitting in the SWAC section for this game. So we're going to see.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Great comments. Intriguing that you pointed out the injury. Obviously, a lot of focus now is going to shift to Jackson State in terms of the quarterback question. But because it happened a while ago, people forgot in terms of South Carolina State and the question in terms of their quarterback. So I'm glad that you brought that up. With that being said, I'm going to go to you, Wilton. What are your thoughts initially on this matchup?
I know we're putting a lot of emphasis more so on the offensive side of the ball and what the potential of Eric Phoenix, what he, whether he plays or not in this game for South Carolina State. And of course, we know what Jackson State's going to bring with its rushing attack. But I think more than anything, Mike kind of hit the point where he was talking about winning in the trenches. And so it's going to be some interesting matchups along the offensive defensive line, specifically when you look at South Carolina State's offensive line and that matchup of Cam Johnson, Nick Tace, and going up against with Jackson State's defensive line and Jeremiah Williams and Joshua Nobles. That's going to be very, very, very exciting to see. I think you talk about physicality, you're going to get all of that then some. And I also think that when you look at this South Carolina State team and their receivers and Caden High and Justin Brown, and knowing that some of the back end secondary members for Jackson State, like your Keevrick Wiggins, your Robert McDaniels, who had 2 interceptions yesterday, they will be tested. They will be tested. And we've seen this tape before when they played the first time. And Jackson had some struggles defensively in the secondary. So it'll be interesting to see what that side of the ball looks like. Some very, very, very exciting matchups to come in that game.
Charles, good stuff. What?
I think the physicality part, I think Jackson State has checked that off. And we can go back to the MEAC SWAC Challenge last year because a lot of questions swirled in regards to, SWAC style of play versus MEAC style of play. And TC's first game, he established what this Jackson State foundation is going to be. It's winning up front. So they've taken that from last year to an even more dominant phase in year 2 of TC's tenure. So I like we've all touched on, we know, trench play is where it's at, but the health of the quarterbacks is the big thing that I'm really taking a look at. It was a curveball, if you will, yesterday with Jacobian going down, and Jackson State literally going to their 3rd string quarterback. For me, you got a quarterback in this game who can get the ball downfield. That's going to mean everything. So whether that's Eric Phoenix or Ryan Stubblefield, or whether you're taking a look at Zy McDonald, having to get the ball out of his hands and get it downfield for Jackson State, I think that's going to be huge because I think the running games for the most part should cancel each other out. But who can make some plays downfield? And downfield, I mean some big plays downfield, some explosion plays. I think that's going to be huge in this game.
Yeah, I like how you brought that up. In a lot of ways, that was the tell of the tape in the Southern game. The running backs really equaled each other and balanced it up, but it was explosion plays. In this case, it was on the ground, but they were huge, 20, 30-yard runs that really told the tape in the change of the game. So I'm interested as you are in terms of the Celebration Bowl, in terms of both teams, their ability to have big plays, whether it's on the ground or in the air, will be fascinating to see what that looks like in terms of that. Coaching perspective, 2 young coaches that really embellish in terms of the HBCU culture, coming from that, understanding it, thriving and flourishing in it for their teams to be like that. Both coaches certainly know how to motivate. We've seen Chennisberry a little more active in terms of the social media platform. People fascinated. Where are you going in terms of the coaching matchup, Charles?
Oh man, that is a fascinating question because we know the passion of both coaches, and that was on display in that presser yesterday with TC. Just the fact that he talked about I played in this game, on 3 other occasions, and I want to be a national champion. This will be his 4th time playing in this game, and for him to have the reverence of this Celebration Bowl, it kind of it spoke to me in a different way because for I say this SWAC championship generation, the pinnacle was the SWAC championship, and now we're in the Celebration Bowl phase, and for it to click like we got one more, and I think that has finally resonated with Jackson State fan base in terms of the importance of the Celebration Bowl, and for TC to put that out there in terms of I got to get this one. I want to see what it feels like to be on the winning side of this. I think that was huge. And then, Chennisberry, he's been in the big game atmosphere as well. So that's a fascinating question to see, where that edge lies, because to me, it's a push.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. As you alluded to, the first 2 generations, all they knew was a Celebration Bowl. And now you're getting into this 3rd generation, if you would, this 3rd decade, where you almost had a decade of the Celebration Bowl. And now you got that phase where on top of the SWAC championship, you want to finish it out with the Celebration Bowl and bring home the ultimate trophy. With that being said, I'm going to go to you, Dave, and then Wilton, in terms of your thoughts on the coaching matchup. What are you looking at in terms of that?
Well, so the thing for me about Chennis is that he has an offensive line background. He was an offensive lineman. He got his chops as an offensive line coach. Initially when he got to the coaching ranks. So for me, I think he gets the edge. Both of them are phenomenal motivators, but I will say this: the first time I saw Chennis motivating this team at Benedict College, I've never played football for college or high school ball a day in my life, and I was ready to figure out a way to figure it out. Like he's that. So I'm giving Chennis the edge, but I think TC Taylor has done an outstanding job there at Jackson State, considering the transition phase that he had, taking over from the previous coach and things of that sort, and being able to keep that team competitive. And now he finally made it back to the Celebration Bowl. He made it back to the Celebration Bowl in 2 years. Is an impressive feat, to say the least.
Yeah, great point. 3 and 4 years. His first time coming in the second year after going 3 previous time. Fascinating storylines in that itself. Wilt.
I think Dave just said it. From a motivational standpoint, it doesn't get much better than Chennisberry. I mean, like, from a player, even with TC too, though, but with Chennis, like, you definitely get a well-coached game. You're talking about 2 coaches that are very methodical in how they lead their programs. Obviously, leading with discipline. Play calling is going to be, I would expect it to be elite. I think that when you look at TC and what he's been able to do, obviously last year he had an offensive coordinator, but with him, now he's in that role. This season he's been in that role of calling the plays, and he's done an excellent job in doing that. So I think that you're going to get two good coaches giving out obviously extremely good play calling. I think it's going to be a tight matchup. And like he kind of mentioned yesterday in the press conference, this won't be the first time he's watched South Carolina State. He's been on the South Carolina State's been on his radar throughout the season. He also has ties and understanding how some things work within the MEAC, because he used to be an assistant there with Central. So I think it's going to be a good tale of the tape between both coaches.
And and I go back last year. I mean, his first game was against South Carolina State, and right. I mean, they matched the physicality part of that tit for tat. So I, in fact, exceeded it. So I don't discount that whatsoever. It's very hard to seed that physicality part to MEAC in this one.
I'm with you there. I don't think that's no longer the case, man. I think it's always dependent on TV. But even last year with FAMU,
yeah, exactly.
Even last year against FAMU against Howard. So
Yeah, I agree with you that I think SWAC has learned a lot of lessons in terms of what they need to be physical play and when they cross over in these games. I'm not sure if it was as big as it was during regular season, but it certainly played out in the Celebration Bowl. So I'm fascinating. Question I have is Trey Oliver. TC Taylor, work with him. Is he going to give him any insight from his perspective, or is he going to keep it in terms of the MEAC? So that's going to be fascinating to kind of.
They've already formed like Voltron, but I don't know if they forming like they used to. Probably. They've already look, man. I think TC need to call them other 11 coaches in y'all conference to see if somebody's going to help him out.
He can go. I guess he can reach down there to FAMU.
He should just call Willie. He just call Willie. Call Willie at FIU. Just give Willie a call at FIU.
Yeah, that's true too. Good point. And congratulations to Willie.
Congratulations to him.
Coach Willie Simmons.
Yes,
that call up. It's a big deal. 1 year. Obviously, we've seen him do a lot of work in the SWAC at a couple of schools. Ultimately, getting the big prize last year with FAMU, bringing them back to a national prominence with the championship in the SWAC championship game, and then getting it done in the Celebration Bowl. So kudos to Coach Willie Simmons. With that being said, we'll call it a show. This is Dr. Cavill's Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, Wilton Jackson II, and David Rose. With that being said, let's get in here and just close it out. We'll be back on Tuesday as I'll give the final poll of the mid-major. Some people said some questions. These guys said it shouldn't be any questions, but we'll see what that looks like on Tuesday. We'll come back in here and talk a little bit more about the Celebration Bowl. We'll focus a little bit about some defensive, offensive matchups where we get into those trenches and plays and see what do you see the teams trying to run against each other. And then we'll do some final stuff on Thursday as we start to close it out. But this is Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, again with Charles Bishop, Mike Washington, Wilton Jackson II, David L. Rhodes, as he likes to say. Make sure you tune in tonight for Sports Wrap with Brian and AD. On Wednesday, we'll have the O&G Strike Zone. And then on Saturday, you have Carlos Brown, as he had a great show coming into it, this matchup, as they broke down the championship game right before everything. We had a special edition on Friday, so if you didn't get to check it out, you can check that out with Brian and Kyle is Mosley. They got it done. And then on Wednesday, obviously got the independent report with David leading that. So again, without further ado, Charles.
Course.
David.
Lecture.
Wilton.
Dismiss.